Welcome to the pit, where Transformers go after they die. Of the thousands of Transformers, one individual likes to get killed. A lot. And it is none other than the Autobot leader, Optimus Prime. Join me as we journey into all of the many deaths of Optimus Prime in each continuity. We begin our journey in the Generation 1 cartoon, but not where you'd think. In the episode War Dawn, we get to take a look at Cybertron's past in the early stages of the war, back when our beloved Optimus was still Orion Pax. In the episode, Orion and Ariel are attacked by Megatron, and when Ariel is destroyed, Orion attempts to attack Megatron but is gunned down and offlined. If not for Alpha Trion rebuilding him into the leader we all know and love, Orion would have been dead for good. Optimus' death in the 1986 movie was the one most to remember, and was also the one that caused the most controversy. Facing Megatron in one last duel to the death, Optimus appeared as if he would best his enemy. That was, until Hot Rod interfered, causing Optimus to drop his weapon and allowing Megatron to fatally win Prime. Though Optimus defeated Megatron in the end, he died surrounded by his friends and family in the tragic and memorable scene during the first half of the movie, and it was hard to believe Optimus was really gone. This was then rubbed in further in the Generation 1 episode Dark Awakening, in which Optimus' body was being mind-controlled by the Quintessons and attempted to steal the Matrix from Rodimus. In the end, the zombie Optimus was destroyed after being exposed to the Matrix and regaining his free will, when he selflessly flew his ship into the Quintessons, destroying both them and himself. This wouldn't be the end of Prime, however, as he came back in the two-part The Return of Optimus Prime when he was repaired by a Quintesson scientist along with Bumblebee. The Japanese sequel to the Generation 1 cartoon, The Headmasters, didn't cut down on the Prime deaths. The first episode contained a recap of the events of the movie, though instead of featuring an epic battle between Optimus and Megatron, it simply had a stray shot offline Optimus. In Episode 3, Birth of the Fantastic Double Prime, Optimus sacrificed himself once again to shut down Vector Sigma after it went critical. He fused his own essence to the computer, turning grey just as he did in his movie death. Really, Prime? You just came back. In the horrible English dub of Transformers Victory, Jinrai was called Optimus Prime for some reason, and so after Jinrai was badly damaged during a battle with Deathsaurus, Wheeljack and Perceptor pulled the plug on his life support in order to revive him as Victory Leo. So technically speaking, this isn't Optimus Prime death, but it's still worth including here. In the Japanese Transformers Generation 2 manga, Optimus was badly damaged by Megatron's fusion cannon, but thanks to the power of the reconfiguration matrix and burning justice, he was reborn as Laser Rod Optimus Prime and managed to defeat his foe. In the Generation 1 Marvel comic issue After Death, Optimus and Megatron entered the virtual world of Multi-World to compete for a powerful energy source that both sides wanted, deciding that duking it out in a virtual world would be more convenient for both of them. Both Optimus and Megatron had bombs rigged to them, so that the loser of the game would be destroyed in real life. In the game, Optimus and the Protectobots easily best Megatron and the Combaticons, and even though Megatron used a cheat code to come back to life to defeat Defensor, Optimus still managed to best him. But then, Optimus decided that because he allowed some virtual creatures within the game to die, his victory was ultimately pointless, and so he blew himself up. Not taking into account how damaging his death would be for both characters in the story and readers. Marvel even received a letter from a mother claiming that her son was distraught over Optimus' deaths, and the impact of the scene would impact the rest of the comic for issues to come. Of course, Optimus didn't stay dead, though it did take quite a while to bring him back. Optimus' personality was backed up on a floppy disk before his unfortunate death, and so a new Power Master body was able to be built for him so he could return to life. This wasn't the first attempt to revive Prime, however, as a previous attempt blew up. Despite his second chance at life, Prime decided he would need a third, and so sacrificed himself to defeat Unicron in the final battle against the World Eater in On the Edge of Extinction. He was, of course, revived once again in the final issue of the comic in an all-new body once again. In the Marvel Generation 2 comic, Optimus had to sneak into death at the very last minute, and so was devoured by the ferocious swarm in the final issue. He was then brought back 3 pages later with an all-new body. Just got to get that last advertisement in. In the Generation 1 comic, pretty much every moment for Prime was hell. Near the end of the comic, the poor guy was battered and broken by the possessed Fortress Maximus, and then beaten further by a Hot Rod after Optimus was possessed by the Dark Matrix. Though he assisted in defeating the Dark Matrix creature, Optimus eventually succumbed to his injuries, his last moments spent with Hot Rod before he expired. Moving on to Beast Wars now, though the leader of the Maximals was Optimus Primal and not Optimus Prime, Primal still had his fair share of deaths. In the Season 1 finale Other Voices Part 2, the Vok intended to use their Planet Buster to destroy Earth. Continuing the tradition of Optimus sacrificing themselves, Optimus Primal flew up in a pod to destroy the machine, but intended to jump out of the pod. Megatron, however, was one step ahead of his foe, and sealed Primal within the pod, causing him to be destroyed when the pod made contact. In the Season 2 finale of Beast Wars, Megatron gains access to the original Ark, and begins his plan for the extinction of the Maximals by destroying the original Optimus Prime's head, essentially destroying him. Thankfully, the Maximals managed to repair him and stop the Maximals from never existing. Beast Machines killed off Primal even more times, once in the Season 1 finale, in which both he and Megatron were destroyed when they unleashed their Doomsday devices against each other. Megatron survives as just a Spark, but Primal was sent to the All-Spark. He managed to resist, however, and returned to the Maximals. Then he died again in the final episode of the show, sacrificing himself in the core of Cybertron along with Megatron after spending an entire episode battling his foe. In the Beast Wars Uprising comic Broken Windshields, it is alluded that both Optimus Prime and Optimus Primal died of old age off-screen, as the story takes place far in the future without the two. Back to Optimus Prime now, heading to the early 2000s with Robots in Disguise. In the final episode of the Robots in Disguise cartoon, Optimus and Galvatron go all out on each other, hitting each other with everything they've got. Neither one dies, however. That's a first. Well, the writers of the comic Shell game decided that this wouldn't do, and had it so that Mega Zaret killed this Prime and impaled his head on a stick, due to the leader having no backup as most of his forces were abducted by Unicron to fight in the Unicron War at the time. No Prime is safe from death, damn it.
The Unicron trilogy tended to cut back on the Prime deaths, though the comics like to kill clones of Prime. In the Dreamwave Worlds Collide arc, the Autobots of the Armada universe come across the dead corpse of a Prime from another dimension. And in a Cybertron comic, we get to see a dead Prime being tortured, courtesy of Mega Zaret. Prime only died once in all three shows, in the Armada episode Crisis, where he threw himself in front of Megatron's Hydra Cannon in an attempt to use the Matrix to stop the machine from destroying Earth. He succeeded, though the beam destroyed him, causing him to turn white and crumble to dust. The live-action movies, being super violent and all that, of course couldn't resist the temptation to kill off the beloved leader of the Autobots, and so in the second movie had Prime fighting Megatron, Starscream and Grindor at the same time. And though it appeared that Prime was winning, I mean he did rip off Starscream's arms and beat him with it, and then tore Grindor's head in two, Megatron got the best of his foe and impaled him through the chest before firing a blast that killed Optimus. Of course, later in the movie, Sam managed to use the beautiful smell of a dirty sock to revive Optimus, allowing him to get his revenge on Megatron a movie later. Age of Extinction began with Optimus Prime being essentially dead after taking heavy damage from human forces, until he was revived by Mark Wahlberg. Finally, in the console version of the first movie game, in the Decepticon campaign ending, Megatron and Optimus fight each other to the death, though this ending is a little different to what you may expect. Megatron came out on top, destroying Prime after bashing his head in with a flail. Ouch. Even Transformers Animated hopped into the Prime-killing bandwagon, as in the three-part pilot series for the show, Transform and Roll Out, Optimus lost his life after a battle with Starscream. Yes, Starscream, but was revived literally a few seconds later by Sari's Key. This death becomes very questionable when you consider that in the Japanese Cool Comic manga, Prime fought a devastating battle with Megatron in the final issue. He was decimated by a superpowered blast from Megatron's fusion cannon, and was then stabbed in the chest, but he was totally fine because Japan. Okay then. In the IDW comics, Prime's deaths were more metaphoric, if you will. In the issue Transformation, Orion was shot in the back and everyone thought he was dead. Surprise, he wasn't. But then in Escalation, in a battle with Megatron, Optimus was badly damaged and almost killed. He managed to survive by downloading his consciousness into his combat deck and so lived to tell the tale. In the self-explanatory one-shot Death of Optimus Prime, Optimus relinquishes the name and reverts back to Orion Pax for a while, before he gets bored and goes back to Optimus. Wow, didn't see that coming. In the Aligned continuity, Optimus was blown up along with the Autobot base in the Prime episode Darkest Hour, and lay dying for several days with Smokescreen, eventually coming to the decision that the Matrix had to be passed on to the young bot. Smokescreen had another idea, and so built Prime a new body using the Forge of Solus, and Prime was back in action. This was until Predacons Rising, in which at the end of the movie, after fusing with the All-Spark with his own spark, in order to keep it from Megatron, Unicron, Galvatron thingy, he was forced to sacrifice himself in order to restore life to Cybertron. Of course, he didn't stay dead for very long, lasting about one episode in Robots in Disguise before showing up as a ghost, training in the realm of Primes. He eventually came back to fight Megatronus and stayed alive for the rest of the show, despite the fact that he acted like a crippled old man for most of it. So yeah, Prime's died quite a bit, and it doesn't look as if Prime's done dying just yet. We'll see him soon, in the pit. Thanks for watching. Hey viewer, hope you enjoyed this video. It's the pilot of my new series, The Pit, in which we take a look at all of the deaths of a Transformers character. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like and comment telling me what you think. Also be sure to comment and tell me what character you want to see in the pit next. Thanks and see you guys in the next video. Diamond Bolt out. In the last episode of The Pit, we took a look at the many deaths of Optimus Prime, and discovered he was killed a whopping 24 times throughout every continuity. Now we look at Optimus's nemesis, the leader of the Decepticons, Megatron. It's time to find out which of the two has died the most. So without further ado, let us take a look at the many deaths of Megatron. Beginning in the original Transformers cartoon, Megatron technically never died in this show, though in the 1986 Transformers movie he was beaten to near death by Optimus Prime. Collected by his troops as they retreated, Starscream eventually dumped him out of Astro Train as they flew in space, and there Megatron was discovered by Unicron and reformatted into Galvatron. So while technically though Megatron died, he was reborn as Galvatron immediately afterwards and became an even greater threat to the galaxy. Can we count this one? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, cool. In the Generation 1 Marvel comic, Megatron was supposedly blown up twice in the run of the comic, and disappeared and was usurped many times. However, he was never actually seen dying. At the end of the comic, he was on board the Ark that crashed into Earth, and it was never heard from again, suggesting all on board were deceased. This was until Regeneration 1, where he was seen to have survived the Ark crash and began raising a zombie army of Decepticons on Earth. Then the Autobots showed up, beat the hell out of his army, and then Prime managed to best Megatron in a fight after they discovered his weakness was the still alive severed head of Ratchet. After destroying the Autobot, Prime punched a hole into Megatron's chest and crushed his spark. You know, for kids. In the Marvel UK story, Another Time and Place, we see Cybertron years after the end of the US comic, where the Autobots spend their time searching for a cure for the nucleon that prevents them from transforming. In this, we see the remaining Decepticons attempting to revive Megatron, who apparently did die in the Ark crash in this story, though their revived Megatron looks like this, and then was killed again when Grimlock and Prime tore him in two. Good work. In Beast Wars, the majority of the G1 Megatron's deaths were caused by the moment when the Beast Wars Megatron broke into the Ark and stole his ancestor's spark to increase his own power in the episode Master Blaster. In the show, while Megatron was never seen returning the spark, a deleted scene that was cut from the final episode displays this event taking place. It was in splintered timelines that things got dicey, however. In the universe of Primax 496.22 Alpha, as detailed in an Ask a Vector Prime Facebook post, Tigerhawk ended up killing Megatron after he absorbed his ancestor's spark, causing a time storm and destroying his entire universe. In the Beast Wars Uprising story, A Change to the Agenda, Megatron was successful in his attempt in erasing the Maximals from history, but Black Arachnia managed to destroy the original Megatron using her cyber venom, and thus erasing the Predacons as well. Finally, in the Japanese Beast Wars Metals manga, Optimus Primal and Megatron fought an epic final battle, but this time Optimus Primal tore Megatron's spark from his body and crushed it, finally ending his foe. In the Season 1 finale of Beast Machines, Optimus Primal and Megatron unleashed their doomsday devices upon one another. Though Megatron's managed to eliminate Primal, Optimus only managed to destroy Megatron's physical body, and he survived as a spark, spending almost the entirety of Season 2 inhabiting new bodies. In the finale of Beast Machines, Seeds of the Future, Primal and Megatron face each other again in one last epic final battle, though this time with Megatron in Primal's Transmetal 2 body. Despite his upgrade, the two both fell into the core of Cybertron at the end of the battle, and were both destroyed. In the one-shot comic Transformers Deviations, a world is presented in which Optimus Prime never died in the 1986 movie, and as such, executed Megatron with a shot to the head, as he would have if Hot Rod hadn't originally intervened. G.I. Joe crossovers are not kind to Megatron. In the Devil Jew's G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers crossover, at the climax of the series, Megatron was defeated by Optimus in battle, and then was disassembled by human scientists to study. In the Dreamwave Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, Megatron was killed along with every other Transformer when the Matrix of Leadership was destroyed. Finally, in the more recent IDW G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers crossover, garbage, Megatron was defeated at the end of the comic and had his body thrown into the core of the sun, where he was transported into the My Little Pony dimension. Wait, what? Though the Megatron in Robots in Disguise did not die during the show, surviving his battle with Optimus in the final battle, his counterpart in the IDW Generation 1 continuity by the name of Gigatron, there is Gigatron? There is no way I'm not going to stuff this up. You know what, Google Translate, what do you got? Gigatron. Cool. His counterpart in the IDW Generation 1 continuity by the name of Gigatron did have a building crush him at the end of Drift Empire of Stone. It is not revealed whether he is truly dead, but he still hasn't made an appearance from that, so... This Megatron was also apparently killed by Omega Prime in the time stream of the Viron 704.31 Epsilon, though he didn't stay dead for long, as Mega Zarek arrived in the timeline and resurrected Megatron as the ferocious and undead Megabolt. In the Unicron trilogy, though he was killed at the end of all 3 shows, he was Galvatron at the time, and so we can't really count him in that video. No, Galvatron deaths are for another video. However, he does die in the Armada PS2 game as Megatron. See, Megatron serves as one of the final bosses in the game, and once the player defeats him, he gloats to Prime before dying in a molten lava pit. In the incredibly violent Transformers live-action movies, it wasn't a surprise to anyone that Megatron was going to die. In the first one, released in 2007, Megatron met his end at the climax of the film and had the Allspark shoved into his chest, apparently destroying his spark in the process. His body was then thrown into the middle of the ocean, though he was revived using a shard of the Allspark in Revenge of the Fallen. And though he made it out of that movie alive, unlike the audience, he was put down once again at the end of Dark of the Moon after an incredibly violent and anticlimactic battle with Optimus Prime, and he had his neck torn from his body with an axe. Lovely. And of course, he was revived once again in Age of Extinction, though this time calling himself Galvatron. In the Titans movie comics, though never explicitly mentioned, Megatron and the other Decepticons were stranded on a dead Cybertron at the end of the series, with no resources to use or feed on, and so most likely starved to death. This took place in an alternate universe, however. In Transformers Animated, the series begins with Megatron being defeated by Optimus Prime and supposedly dying as the remains of his broken body fall onto Earth. Though little did the Autobots know that his body was taken into possession by Isaac Sumdag, who believed he was an Autobot like the others. Megatron spent a majority of Season 1 of Animated as a severed head and hand, though operated from behind the scenes. He returned in the 2-part Megatron Rising season finale. At the end of the show, though defeated by Prime in an epic battle, he never died, and was incarcerated on Cybertron. However, a character by the name of Master Megatron appeared in the comic Bots of Science, bearing an immense resemblance to the Cybertron Megatron. He ends up falling victim to Oil Slick's toxic rust like many of the others in the comic. However, since it's not the real Megatron, we can't really count it. In Shattered Glass, Megatron is executed by Cyclonus after being shot in the face, though is later revived as Galvatron. Big surprise. Finally, we look at Transformers Prime. In the Season 1 finale, the Autobots blew up a space bridge, and Megatron with it, and believed he was dead. He survived thanks to the Dark Energon within him, however, but was incredibly weak. Starscream attempted to finish off his leader, but was unable to due to Soundwave's intervention. As such, Megatron survived. However, in the final episode of Prime, Deadlock, Megatron is stabbed through the chest with a Star Saber by Bumblebee, and then falls back down to Earth where he rested at the bottom of the sea, very much dead. Then he was revived by Unicron and Predacons Rising. Jeez, he just can't stay dead, can he? So now we turn to the leaderboard. Last time we counted 24 deaths for Optimus, but I am an honest man, and I admit I forgot one last time round. What? I made a mistake? But that never happens!
But, wait a minute. In Fall of Cybertron, he lost his voice taking a shot for Optimus from Megatron.
No, don't show that. No, that didn't happen. Shut up. As mentioned in the video, in Dreamwave's G.I. Joe Transformers crossover, every Transformer in the comic was killed at the end, including Optimus Prime. So that brings Optimus Prime's death count from 24 to 25. But can Megatron beat the score? No. Megatron comes in just underneath Prime with 19 deaths under his belt. And, while still a lot, is still not enough to beat his foe. Looks like even in death, Megatron can never prevail. Yeah, just cut to the ending. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the second episode of The Pit and know that there are many more on the way. Be sure to let me know in the comments who you want to see in The Pit next. Thanks, and see you guys next time. Being Megatron's second in command and commander of all of the Seekers, Starscream has quite an important role in the Decepticon army. But that isn't enough for him. As we all know, his ultimate goal is to overthrow his leader and take over the Decepticons. Unfortunately for Starscream, we all know what happens when you cross Megatron. Throughout the decades of Transformers, Starscream has become known for having an immortal spark that keeps him in a ghost-like state. However, this hasn't prevented him from getting killed over and over and over throughout the many different continuities he stars in. In this episode of The Pit, we're taking a look at the many deaths of Starscream. But before we begin, despite my excessive amounts of research, there are always deaths I missed. Last episode we covered Megatron, where his total reached 19. But thanks to you guys in the comment section, we're able to raise that total and address some misconceptions. Many pointed out that Megatron died in Transformers Cybertron prior to his Galvatron transformation, but this is not the case. Though trapped in a random dimension by Vector Prime and seemingly destroyed, his Unicron-infused armor kept him alive as a ghost-like entity until his physical body was restored and he was able to make a reappearance. So technically he didn't really die. Sorry guys. In the video I also claimed that Megatron was stranded on Cybertron at the end of the Titans comics, which is true, but I was graciously corrected by commenter Gary the Neutral about the events leading up to that moment. During a battle with Optimus Prime, Megatron was infected with a human-created nanovirus that destroyed him. Or so everyone thought. Apparently Megatron had downloaded his mind into the Allspark and was revived by Starscream. And then from there he lost to the Autobots and was trapped on Cybertron, like I mentioned. So this one also technically doesn't count. However, I did forget Fall of Cybertron, and this one does count. In the game, Megatron was crushed from a blow by Metroplex, but then was revived when Shockwave managed to salvage his parts and bring him back using the Dark Energon he had. So this one does count as a counter. Now, on to Starscream. Starscream's first and most memorable death was in Transformers the movie, in which he finally becomes the leader of the Decepticons after Megatron's supposed death, for a whole of 17 seconds. For the moment he is crowned, the newly created Galvatron appears and disintegrates him with a single shot from his cannon alternate mode, and Starscream crumbles to dust. That wouldn't be the end of Screamer, however, as he would later return as a ghost for the rest of the series until he was sent spiraling off into space by the Autobots at the end of the series. In the Marvel comics, Starscream had a bit of a rough time. In Omega Supreme's debut issue Command Performances, Megatron staged an attack on the Ark, believing it was defenseless. It was not. Optimus had kept Omega Supreme there to guard, and he did his job quite efficiently, deactivating all of Megatron's forces but Laserbeak, leaving poor Starscream amongst the others left discarded on the battlefield. The Autobots would later take their bodies and put them in stasis to keep them alive, and Starscream would eventually awaken, meaning that he didn't technically die, he was just offline. This was until the infamous Underbase saga, in which a powered-up Starscream spent an entire issue killing off almost every character in the comic at the time, before being overloaded by the power of the Underbase and exploding quite spectacularly. He would later be revived once again as a Pretender, though would later be killed again when the Ark crashed at the end of the comic and all on board, including Starscream, were apparently offline. He would later be revived from this in 3 separate occasions and stayed alive in those continuities, these being Regeneration 1, Classics, and Generation 2. Over at Marvel UK, a scene in a Target 2006 comic had Galvatron obliterating Starscream with a single shot at the climax of the arc, before retreating back to his own time, realizing the damage he had done. Thankfully for him, it was actually Skywarp he destroyed, painted to look like his commander. In the story Race with the Devil, Darkwing and Dreadwing go looking for the corpse of Starscream after he was exploded by the Underbase in order to revive it, pursued by the Triggerbots, only to find that Starscream's body was already walking around on its own as a zombie. It was animated by the power of the Underbase, but driven by Starscream's mind, though by the end of the story he had all of his Underbase energy drained from him, effectively killing Starscream yet again, though this time also killing the Underbase in the process. In the children's picture book Deadly Paradise, Starscream met quite a gruesome fate when he was crushed to death by Windcharger's magnets. You know, for kids. In the Choose Your Own Adventure book Decepticon Paradise, 2 outcomes in the book saw Starscream meeting a very tragic end. In one scene, Starscream flies into a toxic gas cloud and crashes into a volcano and melts as a result. In another scene, Starscream is shot out of the sky by the Autobots and crashes into the ground, creating his own grave on impact along with Thundercracker and Soundwave. Oh, what's that? Find Your Fate Jr.? Alright, cool. In the E-Hobby comics, the Starscream killed by Galvatron in the 1986 movie was sent to Limbo, and here we see him meeting up with several other Starscreams from across the multiverse. They all conspire to escape from the dimension, though only the Starscream we know ends up succeeding and returns to the material world, as a ghost comprised of all of the Starscreams he met while in Limbo. Alright then. So these other ghosts mean that at some point all of these Starscreams died horrible deaths, and therefore all count towards the counter. However, this is a bit of a tricky one to work out, as the story has some confusion as to how many Starscreams are actually in Limbo. The text mentions there being 7 ghosts, though the image only depicts 6. I think I'll go with the text on this one. In the one-shot Transformers Deviations comic, we visit a world in which Optimus Prime kills Megatron during the battle for Autobot City of Transformers the movie, allowing Starscream to rise to power. He then becomes Megascream, and at the end of the comic fuses with all of his Decepticons to form a giant combiner that then explodes when Hot Rod opens the Matrix of Leadership, destroying Starscream in the process. In the Devil Jew's G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers crossover, Cobra Commander enslaves Starscream and keeps him as his own personal pet. Though he survives the first crossover, at the climax of the second, Starscream manages to escape his captor and return to Shockwave, only to discover that Cobra Commander had lined his insides with explosives, which he then detonated, destroying all of Shockwave's forces and Starscream in the process. Ouch. In IDW's Hearts of Steel comic, Starscream took over the Decepticons when they were reactivated during the 19th century, while Megatron remained in stasis lock. He decided to stage an attack on New York City using Astro Train, though when the also reactivated Autobots intercepted, they managed to switch the tracks they were moving on and sent Astro Train and Starscream, who was on board, off a cliff, and they were never seen again. Though we never see them die on panel, it is implied in the story that the fall meant their destruction. In the Japanese Henkai comics, I think that's how you pronounce it, Starscream takes quite the beating. He is completely decimated by a blast from Galvatron, but somehow survives that. Then the two of them were crushed by falling rocks, and never seen again. Though at the end of the story, when the Autobots return to Cybertron, Skyfire stays behind to look for his old friend, believing he is still alive. We'll have to take his word for it. In the profile for the 2015 Timeline's General Optimus Prime toy, we get the ending of the story told through several other profiles contained within the other toys from the toy line. In this, the Decepticons accidentally blew up an Energon refinery on Mertonia, and themselves along with it, meaning Starscream yet again perished. Oh, and I guess that also means that Megatron died, so I guess I missed yet another death to Megatron. In the god-awful Combiner Wars cartoon, during the climax of the series, Starscream is converted into a horrible abomination and tries to destroy our heroes, but Windblade manages to summon Metroplex's arm or something and crush him. In the timeline story of Monsters and Mayhem, the vicious Thunder Mayhem goes around destroying the hell out of Cybertron after turning on its creators, and Starscream was most likely among the many others that were killed during its rampage. However, since it's not explicitly seen, we can't confirm this one. Moving away from Generation 1 theme series and onto the Unicron trilogy, Starscream liked to die quite a lot. In the only one that was actually meaningful, Starscream met his end during the final battle with Unicron in the Armada cartoon, interrupting a ferocious battle between Galvatron and Optimus to prove to them that they needed to work together. To prove this, he fired all he had at the World Eater, only to be disintegrated completely for his efforts. This gave Galvatron and Optimus the push they needed to work together. This scene was tragic, emotional, and very meaningful, considering we see a supposedly selfish character sacrificing himself for the good of others. And then in Energon, he just throws himself in the sun. You know, as you do. In Dreamwave's Energon comic, Starscream, having survived the final battle with Unicron in this continuity, was instead shot into an Energon ore processor by Scorponok and melted down after attempting to rejoin the Decepticons. He didn't die, however, surviving as an Energon ghost due to the unusual way in which he perished. That at least makes a lot more sense than the cartoon's origin for him. Though he made it out of the Cybertron cartoon alive, in the Galaxy Force manga, Starscream, in his Titanic form, was taken down by the Autobots and exploded. We can assume he would have returned like he did in the cartoon, but as the comic was cancelled, we never got to see what happened to Starscream. Starscream definitely had a totally important role in the live-action Michael Bay movies. Yep. His massive importance and compelling character arc came to a shocking end, however, in Dark of the Moon, when Sam Witwicky inserted one of Wheeljack's boomsticks into his eyes and promptly blew it up, and Starscream's head along with it, as well as all of the hopes and dreams anyone had of the Michael Bay movies being good. Much like his master in the Titan movie comic, Starscream was stranded on a dead Cybertron at the end of the story, along with the other Decepticons with no resources to feed on, and so most likely starved to death along with the others. In Transformers Animated, Starscream... oh man, this one could take a while. Starscream was doing pretty well for himself in the first season, believing he had successfully offline Megatron in the first episode. This was until Megatron was revived during the two-part Megatron Rising arc, and when the two met up, Megatron did the thing that no other Megatrons before him have ever been smart enough to do. Kill Starscream. For real, seriously, he just up and did it. It was awesome. Unfortunately for Megatron, Starscream had a piece of the Allspark embedded in his forehead, so even though his spark was extinguished, he was still alive. So what was the first thing Starscream tried doing as soon as he discovered that he had a second chance at life? What amazing personality change did he have? What amazing... He attacked Megatron, and failed. He failed very, very hard. Let's leave it at that. So the Decepticons dispose of him, but Starscream is brought back to life once again, revived by the Allspark Shard. And then he tries again, and one more for good measure. Okay, he's done. At the end of the show, Starscream was finally put down for good when Prowl managed to restore the Allspark, gathering all of the shards and causing them to rejoin.
This meant that the shard that Starscream had was torn from his head, finally offlining him once and for all. Finally. In a Japanese manga adaptation of animated called The Cool Comic, Megatron fired a blast through Starscream and offlined him. I mean, he looks pretty dead. Or whatever that looks like, honestly, it's terrifying. But somehow he survives this, only to meet the same fate that he did in the show. At the end of Transformers Prime, in the finale Predacons Rising, Starscream is seen cornered by the three Predacons, and it is implied that they tore him apart and made a nice snack out of him. In the IDW Robots in Disguise comic, we even see Predaking with Starscream's torn off arm. However, it was recently revealed in Robots in Disguise that Starscream managed to survive by activating the internal defenses of the base he was in and rid himself of the Predacons. And with that, we conclude the deaths of Starscream. Now to the leaderboard. Previously on the pit, we worked out that Optimus Prime had died a whopping 25 times, and in this episode we increased Megatron's death count from 19 to 21. However, as we just recently worked out, Starscream tops both of them with a massive 30 deaths. I highly doubt we're going to find someone to top that. However, our next contender might have something to say about that. See you next time. Oh, is that it? Okay, I guess I'll think about... Okay, I'll do Dirge. Of the many characters in the Transformers franchise, none is more renowned for dying than that of the blue Conehead Seeker, Dirge. But, can Dirge be the others we've taken a look at in this series? It's time to find out. In this episode of The Pit, we're taking a look at the deaths of the three Conehead Seekers, Ramjet, Thrust, and of course, Dirge. Before we begin, however, once again I must address some errors and misconceptions stemming from the comments section of the last episode. This seems to be a mandatory segment now. This time I think I did pretty well getting all of Starscream's deaths, though the comments did point out some scenes that I may have missed.
I can safely say in the Alternity Continuity and Evangelion crossover,
though beaten at the end of both, Starscream survived as a ghost once again. In Fall of Cybertron, Starscream was smashed against the wall by Grimlock, but his appearance in Prime suggests that he was not killed. As for the Starscream clones in Transformers Prime, I wouldn't really count them despite their brutal ends. As though they are indeed Starscreams, they are simply clones of the actual Starscream. And though they possess sentient, Starscream linked his own spark to them,
and as a result feels their pain.
which indicates that they are a part of him, and as such I won't count them. However, I did make one absolutely massive error in that video, one that is 100% unforgivable. I said in Fall of Cybertron, Shockwave put Megatron back together, but it was actually Soundwave. I know, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go sit in the corner of shame. I'm gonna cry. But I'll do that later. For now, let's take a look at the many deaths of the Coneheads. We begin our journey in the original Transformers Slaughterfest, Transformers the movie. In the final acts of the movie, both Autobots and Decepticons unite to take on Unicron. In one scene, we see the three Coneheads fly into Unicron's mouth and explode quite violently. All three were later seen alive, however, though in 5 Faces of Darkness Part 5, both Ramjet and Dirge were seen being blown up once more after Ultra Magnus punched them too hard. They survived even this, however. What are they, invincible? Haha, no. In the Marvel Generation 1 comics, the Coneheads had a bit of a rough time. During the 4-part G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers crossover, Ramjet was shot down by G.I. Joe. He was let off easy, however. Dirge attempted to attack Serpentor, but had his guns jammed, and when he tried to fire he ended up blowing himself up and spiraling towards a fiery death. And thus began Dirge's lineage of getting killed. Though Thrust escaped the wrath of G.I. Joe, he was later gunned down by Blaster and exploded in the issue Totaled, though was later seen alive. In Generation 2, during the final battle with the Swarm, Ramjet fought his hardest but was eventually overcome and consumed by the powerful entity. Dirge too didn't stand a chance, but along with Nightbeat decided he would rather self-destruct than be consumed, and so blew himself up. And then literally seconds later, Megatron showed up with the substance that could have prevented his death. That one was your own fault, Dirge. In the Classics continuity, which continues on from the Marvel Generation 1 comics, Ramjet was revealed to have been killed by Starscream during the Underbase saga, though was later rebuilt as Shockwave had created personality backups of he and many others. In this continuity, Dirge was also revived by Megatron, though ended up under the command of Bugbite. And in the comic Games of Deception fought an ill-fated battle against the attacking Autobots, and found himself shot in the chest by Grimlock and did not get back up.
He was later revived once again, and stayed alive. Probably. In Regeneration 1, another continuation of the G1 Marvel comics, Thrust was among the many Decepticons revived to serve as part of Megatron's zombie army, though after they fought and lost to the Autobots, they were thrown into a pit and obliterated in orbit once more. For him to be revived means that he had to have been dead in the first place, meaning we add 2 to the counter for Thrust. Maybe Blaster's shot really did end up killing him. In the children's choose your own adventure book Project Brain Drain, one of the scenes sees the Autobots gunning down and destroying Dirge, while Thundercracker got off with just a scratch. God damn it, Dirge. In the one-shot Transformers Deviations comic, get it? One shot? Because you shot him in the... Get it? I'm sorry. We visit an alternate version of the 1986 movie, where Optimus kills Megatron during the battle for Autobot City. This causes Starscream to rise to power and become Megascream, and at the end of the comic combine with several Decepticons, including Thrust and Dirge, to combat the Autobots. But in the end was destroyed by Hot Rod opening the Matrix and in the process killed the two. This next one, this one's gonna get a bit, can I just not talk about this one? Please? It's not canon, is it? Do I have to? I can't believe it. In the Transformers Beast Within comic... I'm fine. In the comic, a brutal battle between the Autobots and Decepticons takes place, and one of the very first casualties is Thrust, who was lucky enough to have Optimus Prime punch a hole through him. Dirge and Ramjet didn't get off any easier, as they were both knocked out of the air by the Beast and exploded. In the IDW Generation 1 continuity, in a cruel twist of irony, Dirge is the only one to have not died so far, and he is still a recurring character over in Robots in Disguise. His 2 Conehead teammates were not so lucky. In his own Spotlight issue, Ramjet aspired to overthrow Megatron with a plan of his own, but as he was warned by Skywarp at the beginning of the issue, this may have not been a good idea. Instead of taking over the Decepticons, Ramjet was instead beaten to death by Megatron, had his spark torn out, and then had his discarded body parts scattered all over the world. Nice. Thrust's end was just depressing. Though not having been seen throughout all of All Hail Megatron, he was apparently part of Megatron's forces during the Decepticons' takeover of Earth. Though after the Autobots returned and kicked Megatron's ass, Thrust was one of the Decepticons left behind. He was heavily injured, however, trapped in a building and was unable to escape. Police officers that discovered him decided that setting the building on fire and letting it crush him was the right thing to do, and so Thrust died alone. That one just makes me feel bad. Both Thrust and Ramjet's bodies would later be used as the basis of a clone army several years later. Though a regular on the show, Thrust never died in the cartoon of Beast Wars 2. His fate was more ambiguous in the manga adaptation, as in the final issue of the comic, Leo Convoy and Galvatron had an epic final battle, and in the process destroyed Nemesis, the planet that the other Maximals and Predacons were currently on. Though the Maximals were seen to have later survived, the Predacons, including Thrust, were never heard from again, so it's unknown whether they died or not. In Beast Machines, Thrust was one of the original 3 Viacon generals, and was the last surviving of the 3 due to the fact that his spark contained that of Waspinators, and the Maximals didn't care about him. In the 2-part finale of the show, during the epic final battle between the Maximals and Megatron, Thrust and his fellow generals Obsidian and Striker fought Cheetor, though the Maximal managed to activate the anti-gravity generators and send Obsidian and Striker into orbit, leaving only Thrust to take him on. The Viacon was more than eager, and though it looked as if he would win as he tackled the Maximal to the ground, Cheetor managed to grab a spark extractor and remove his spark, killing him. At the end of the show, it was revealed that Waspinator survived, but his alter ego Thrust did not. Thrust in the Armada cartoon served as a sneaky and mysterious character, though in the final few episodes was revealed to be an agent of Unicron all along, and turned on his former master Galvatron. Confronting his ex-leader, Thrust ordered Unicron to destroy Galvatron, though when nothing happened, backed away from Galvatron in fear. This caused him to fall into a plate between Unicron's armor, and after being subjected to Galvatron telling him how much he had stuffed up, he was crushed and then exploded quite violently. Ouch. In Dreamwave's World Collide arc of their Armada comic, Dirge was one of the 4 heralds selected by Unicron to purge the world for their master. He would later encounter Jetfire, who detonated the command center they were in. Though Jetfire escaped, Dirge and the other 3 heralds were blown to bits. In the Transformers Cybertron comic Revelations Part 5, both Ramjet and Thrust, who are minicons in this continuity, were violently executed by Unicron, Ramjet being crushed and Thrust impaled after Unicron decided their purpose had been fulfilled and their services no longer required. Poor little guys. Considering his previous fate the last time he ran into G.I. Joe, things were not looking good for Dirge when he showed up in Double Jew's second G.I. Joe and Transformers crossover. He was seen as part of Shockwave's forces on Cybertron, and though it was never explicitly seen, he was either killed when the Dinobots tore through the Decepticon forces, or when Cobra Commander blew Starscream and all of the Decepticons in Shockwave's tower up. I'm beginning to feel a little sorry for Dirge.
In the Timelines continuity, Dirge is no longer a jet, but an Insecticon. In the comic Descent into Evil, Dirge and Buzzclaw were hired by Deathsaurus to work on a cloning facility in order to produce an Insecticon army. Though as soon as the Autobots found out, they staged an attack, defeating Dirge and Buzzclaw and eventually destroying the facility. Dirge's final fate was never revealed. In the manga adaptation of Transformers Animated named The Cool Comic, the lying and deceiving Ramjet was among the several Starscream clones Megatron ordered to attack Omega Supreme, but as soon as the giant converted into robot mode, he had no trouble wiping them all out with a single blast. In IDW's Reign of Starscream comic, Ramjet was among the Decepticons working for Starscream, though things did not go well for him when a group of Autobots attacked in order to free their captured comrades, and Ramjet was decapitated by Crosshairs. Ow. Finally, we look at the more recent Alliance continuity. In the novel Retribution, both Autobot and Decepticon found themselves imprisoned on Aquatron, and one scene sees the Quintessons selecting random Cybertronians to be fed to their Piranacons after they were deemed innocent of crimes against the Quintessons. Ramjet was one of the unlucky ones chosen, and though he tried, he could not protect himself from the overwhelming odds and was devoured. So with that, we head to the leaderboard. I'm sure these results will surprise many. Though Dirge has been notorious for death, those watching may be interested to know that all three Coneheads actually all tie, each with a total of 8. Wait, 8? Only 8? Is that it? Dirge, the one that is killed literally every 5 seconds, only receives an 8, as opposed to Starscream's 30? I'm as shocked as I imagine you all are. And I swear, I've looked everywhere. 8 is it. But allow me to elaborate as to why Dirge has become the running joke that he is today. The reason Dirge is so well known is that he does indeed die in essentially every appearance he has. He just hasn't appeared in that many continuities, as opposed to bigger names such as Optimus and Megatron. So while Dirge's overall count is puny in comparison to the others we've covered so far in the pit, that doesn't change the fact that almost every single version of Dirge that has appeared is dead. Thrust and Ramjet, on the other hand, have appeared in several other continuities, hence why their death count is equal to Dirge's. They've had more appearances, and therefore more opportunities to die. Dirge hasn't been given those opportunities, though still manages to get himself killed no matter how small his role. So we can all keep making fun of Dirge for sucking. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of The Pit. Be sure to let me know what you thought down in the comments, and also be sure to let me know who you want to see next in The Pit. Thanks, and see you guys next time. Soundwave and Shockwave, two very well-known Transformers who have had a plethora of appearances in various different Transformers continuities. Both play a large role in the Decepticon army, with Soundwave being Megatron's communications officer and Shockwave the crazy scientist who has spent a fair share of time leading the Decepticons.
Also, they're my two favourite Transformers characters ever.
However, both have had their fair share of deaths, and so that's what we're taking a look at in this video. Join me as we enter the pit to take a look at the many deaths of Soundwave and Shockwave.
Don't worry guys, I'd never let anyone hurt you.
Now, apparently, I managed to go an episode without missing anyone. For as far as I know, no one commented informing me of a death I missed for the 3 Coneheads. Yay! I didn't miss anything for the last episode. No, instead what I did miss was more Optimus and Megatron deaths. God damn it, I'm so bad at my own research. So here's some more Optimus and Megatron deaths I missed. In the Decepticon ending of the DS Transformers Revenge of the Fallen game, the player, as their created Creator-Con, manages to destroy Optimus Prime at the end of the game and is then made the Fallen's right-hand man as a reward. Now, I'm not sure if this one really counts, but in Universal Studios' Transformers The Ride, Evac shoves the Allspark into Megatron's chest and kills him just like how he died in the first Transformers movie. Is this canon? I honestly have no idea. Finally, in IDW's G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers comic in the issue Pax Megatronus, Megatron manages to kill Optimus Prime by shooting a hole through him. He didn't stay dead, however, as the Autobot God of Death Ultra Magnus, yes, this continuity is very weird, brings him back from the afterlife. Now that my idiocy is out of the way, on to Soundwave and Shockwave. In the Generation 1 cartoon, Soundwave survived the entire show, though Shockwave wasn't so lucky. In Transformers the movie, Shockwave was scripted to die, though the scene didn't make it into the final movie, resulting in him disappearing in Season 3 and subsequent seasons. However, in the IDW Transformers the movie comic adaptation, the scene made it into the comic and we get to see Shockwave meeting his end at the hands of Unicron. On the flip side, Soundwave was not very well liked by the authors of the Generation 1 storybooks apparently.
In the Autobots' secret weapon, Soundwave was among the many Decepticons who accidentally fell into a fissure created by Rumble, though it is unknown whether he perished as the book was the last in the series. Rumble, how do you make that mistake? You have one ability. You suck, Rumble. No one likes. In the book Decepticon Poison, a choose-your-own-adventure novel, one outcome of the reader's choices sees Soundwave and a few other Decepticons shot down and creating their own grave on impact. Yes, children's storybook, okay. In the book Project Brain Drain, Jazz fires a sensory blast at Soundwave that reduces him to a pile of spare parts. Soundwave is disrupted by a Soundwave. In the Headmaster's cartoon, Soundwave fought an epic battle with Broadcast, though both sustained heavy damage and exploded at the end of it. Laserbeak managed to recover his master's pieces, and both Soundwave and Blaster's pieces were used to resurrect Soundwave as Sound Blaster. In Marvel's Generation 1 comics, both Soundwave and Shockwave were given prominent roles, and so as to be expected had quite a lot of near-death experiences. In the issue The Desert Island of Space, Shockwave was sent flying down into Earth's atmosphere by Fortress Maximus, and supposedly burned up in the atmosphere, though managed to survive. At the end of the comic's run, Shockwave was on board the Ark that Ratchet crashed into Earth, and he was deactivated along with all the others on board. However, in both the Classics and Regeneration 1 continuities, Shockwave survived and was restored. Though Shockwave missed out on the Underbase saga, Soundwave didn't share the same luck, and so was blasted by the Underbase-empowered Starscream. However, Soundwave survived. Yes, Soundwave was the only one to survive being blasted by an all-powerful energy, even though that same energy took down half the cast of the comic. Soundwave is a badass. In Regeneration 1, Soundwave attempted to restart the Great War, and kicked off the events of the comic. Near the end of it, he was defeated in battle by Blaster, and then when the Dark Matrix creature attacked, he was converted into a Shadow Leech along with the majority of his cassettes. He and all the other Shadow Leeches were then destroyed when Rodimus used the Matrix of Leadership to vanquish the Dark Matrix creature. Poor Soundwave. In Marvel UK's The Legacy of Unicron arc, Unicron manipulated the guest star Death's head into assassinating Shockwave, and so the bounty hunter broke into Shockwave's base, shot him to pieces, and then crushed his brain chip between his fingers. Death's head then came to his senses and was distraught that he had been forced to kill without his consent, and promised Shockwave's destroyed, smouldering corpse he was standing over that he would avenge him. Yes, I'm sure Shockwave really appreciated it. In Devil Jew's G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers continuity, Soundwave met his end during the final battle of the first comic, having a hole punched through him by Optimus Prime and then being disassembled to be studied by humans. Shockwave made his first appearance in the second story, ruling over Cybertron, though was blown to smithereens when Starscream entered his base with his insides lined with explosives courtesy of Cobra Commander. In Dreamwave's Transformers G.I. Joe crossover, both Shockwave and Soundwave did not have happy endings. Poor Shockwave, under the enslavement of Cobra Commander, was forced to fire 16 times in his Terra Alt mode at Superion, even though he required repairs every time he fired a single shot. Megatron wanted to restore him using the Matrix, but the big jerk Cobra Commander said no. Cobra Commander, you are an asshole, and people wonder why I hate G.I. Joe. Soundwave, on the other hand, had a more ambiguous fate, as he disappeared after a scene showing him fighting Grimlock. He was slated to appear in the sequel story that Dreamwave had planned, with no explanation whatsoever, but as the company filed bankruptcy, the comic was never released. In IDW's G.I. Joe vs. the Transformers comic, Soundwave and Shockwave were brothers and were inseparable. Soundwave then had his head destroyed by G.I. Joe, and Shockwave sought to revive him, eventually succeeding, though found that his brother now spoke in a monotone and was emotionless, like the Soundwave we all know. This one makes me feel sorry for Shockwave, but even more sorry for myself because I had to read this garbage. In the profile for the General Optimus Prime toy, Soundwave was amongst many other Decepticons that exploded along with an Energon refinery after a battle with the Autobots. In Transformers Deviations, Soundwave was one of the 4 bots who combined with Mega Scream at the end of the story, only to be destroyed when Hot Rod opened the Matrix of Leadership and blew the combiner up. In 3H Comics' Wreckers Finale Part 2, Soundwave is a mutant, and along with the other 3 mutants were sentenced to death by the Quintessons, and he was devoured by Shockticons. Though I personally don't believe he is, Shock Blast from Transformers Energon is technically Shockwave with a minor name change, as Hasbro lost the name, so I'll include him here. In the episode The Power of Unicron, Shock Blast came up against Unicron, and the result was one that everyone could have anticipated. Shock Blast was crushed beneath Unicron's fist. And then a virtual clone of him appeared to fight in a tournament for no reason a few episodes later. Okay. In Transformers Animated, Soundwave was created by Megatron from a small toy, and upgraded himself with machinery he found. He made his debut in the episode Sound and Fury, though was defeated by the Autobots and crushed to pieces by Bulkhead. He managed to survive and reappear in the 2-part Human Era arc, trapping the Autobots in a virtual world and terrorizing them from within. Though by the end of it, the Autobots managed to escape, and Soundwave and Optimus Prime had a rock battle, before Prime sliced him in half with Laserbeak. Once again, Soundwave managed to survive as a smaller form, and Laserbeak escaped carrying him. Shockwave too made it out of Animated alive, last seen being in custody of the Autobots in the final episode of the show. In Transformers Dark of the Moon, both Soundwave and Shockwave met very violent ends. In the final battle in Chicago, Soundwave was first to go, and had his head blown up when Bumblebee escaped captivity and took he and his other captors down. Shockwave was later put down by Optimus Prime when the Autobot leader tore his eye from his body. Ow. At the end of Transformers Prime, Soundwave found himself trapped in the Shadow Zone with no way of escaping. Shockwave made it to Predacons Rising, though was swarmed by Terracons as soon as Megatron summoned them. He apparently survived, appearing out of nowhere to speak to Starscream, only to disappear, and he hasn't been seen since. Soundwave, on the other hand, managed to escape from the Shadow Zone in the Robots in Disguise episode Portals, though by the end of that episode was shoved back in there by the B-Team. In Fun Publications' A Common Foe comic, a clone of Soundwave created by G-Axis had his head blown off by Croc. Not really sure if this one counts, to be honest. He is a clone. I'll let you guys decide whether or not you want to count this one. And finally, we visit IDW's Generation 1 continuity. A beautiful universe where everyone dies in painful and violent ways. In IDW's Spotlight Mirage, when the Decepticons attacked the Autobot base, Soundwave had his head torn off by Hound, though at the end of the comic it was revealed to be a dream by Mirage. IDW wasn't done almost killing Soundwave just yet though, as in Transformers issue 17 they had Optimus shoot him in the head, downing him instantly. He was eventually repaired, but the genuine concern on Megatron's face is adorable, and will never be forgotten. Shockwave, on the other hand, actually did die in the massive Dark Cybertron crossover of 2012. At the end of it, Optimus and Megatron confronted Shockwave, and though Optimus tried reasoning with him, it was Megatron declaring himself as an Autobot that caused Shockwave's mental state to waver, and he began breaking down, remembering his Senator self in his earlier years. Optimus and Megatron destroyed Shockwave's time drive, and it consumed him, destroying him once and for all. And with that, we head to the leaderboard. As you can see, both Soundwave and Shockwave score relatively low on the leaderboard, with Shockwave equaling the three Coneheads as 8, and Soundwave reaching 10. Despite being very popular characters, the two still don't come even close to reaching Starscream's score, or even Megatron's. So, the question is, who gets to be in the pit next? Thanks for watching guys, hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to let me know in the comments who you want to see next in the pit. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video. Diamondbolt out.
What's your favorite Pokemon? If you were to choose between Counterpunch or Wheeljack, who would you choose? That's a no-brainer, Wheeljack. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of Counterpunch. He has a cool gimmick, but he's never been used properly in any Transformers. Aside from Regeneration 1, I don't think they've ever used him. If your channel was based on something else than Transformers, what would it be? I love the hashtags there. If my channel was to be based on anything other than Transformers, it would most likely either be a Pokemon-based channel or a Sonic the Hedgehog-based channel, because those are the only two other franchises that I have a fairly large knowledge of, as opposed to anything else. Or maybe like Bionicle or Hero Factory, but no one watches that sort of stuff. That wouldn't be very popular. So yeah, that's probably what it would be. More likely Pokemon, because I do, as like 2 people know, my very first video on this channel was a Pokemon video, and while that video was a test, if it wasn't Transformers, I probably would have headed in that direction. Just a side note, would you guys be interested in seeing content of the aforementioned 2 franchises? So Pokemon and Sonic the Hedgehog? Because I would actually love to make some things based on that. Sorry to advertise based on your question, sorry about that. Thanks for the question though. Yeah, so Pokemon or Sonic the Hedgehog or Bionicle. Batman or Superman, Captain or Iron Man? Hashtag Batman, hashtag Iron Man. What's your favorite mold from the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron series? My favorite mold would easily be the Shockwave, like the aerial scientist sort of mold, because it was used to make not only the sexy as hell Shockwave mold, but also the air raid or fireflight mold that I love. So yeah, that one. Who is your least favorite Decepticon? Demolisher from Transformers Armada, because anyone who's seen that should know why. This is my question. How many nipples do you have? Not enough.
What got you into Transformers so much? As I explained last Q&A, it was the 3 DVDs my parents got me that I watched continuously, the toys that I gathered throughout the years, and looking up on the internet just stuff about Transformers. I don't actually think it was the movie, the 2007 movie. I don't think I saw that until a long, ages afterwards. Do you like Beast Wars? Yes. What is your favorite art style across all Transformers mediums? My favorite art style would have to be the current one that More Than Meets the Eye is using. It's just so colorful and vibrant, and it makes all the characters jump off the pages. It makes it so nice to look at. And it's kind of ironic considering how bright and colorful it is with all the gruesome violence that's going on. So yeah, that would be my favorite modern. If anyone's read the Marvel UK Man of Iron comic, that was their very first original Marvel UK comic. I adore the art style they used. It's so amazing. What do you look for in an animated series? Not just Transformers, though that would be the topical franchise. Does the priority fall on character design, the action, the humor used in the series, etc.? I tend to like shows that have a balance of action and comedy. So that's why, for example, Transformers Prime and Transformers Animated are two of my favorite Transformers shows. To give you an example of a more modern idea, One Punch Man has over-the-top dramatic anime action, but it's a comedy anime, and it is so funny. And Teen Titans as well, as another example, had the amazing fight scenes, but also an interesting mix of humor, and also compelling characters usually tend to help. I mean, I wouldn't want to watch a show if it has really boring characters. Why did you never include the Car Robots opening, Micron Legend opening, Super Link Galaxy Force, Transformers Evo opening in your top 10 Transformers intros? Well, truth be told, I didn't know of these openings at the time. It's funny how much a year can do to my knowledge of Transformers things. I hadn't watched any Japanese Transformers shows at that point, except for Victory, so I actually was unaware of all of the Japanese opening. And can you do another top 10 Transformers shows? Yes, because I can't do another one on top of the other one, if you're saying for different choices, but I might do a different version of it, with my opinion now, because it has certainly changed. I cannot believe I put Beast Machines over Beast Wars. How did you make your channel? Well, I woke up one morning, and I was like, I want to make a YouTube channel, and that was what happened. No, okay. I've always wanted to make a YouTube channel because, as I said, I'm a really big fan of YouTube and content creators in general. And growing up watching YouTube and seeing YouTube evolve and just seeing how people make content similar to that of what I make now, I've just always wanted to make my own stuff, and to talk to people about it on the web is just amazing. If you would write the IDW comics, what stories would you incorporate or create? And if you would be in a movie with multiple YouTubers as a Transformer, what would you want your design to be? If I was to write it though, I would have done something different with Jaxus. I like what they did with him, but I liked his appearance in Generation 2 as a ruthless dictator as opposed to the evil scientist sort of thing they gave him. And that's why I didn't like Dark Cybertron so much, because that was basically just killing off as many characters as they could. So that was like Bumblebee and Shockwave and Jaxus and all that for no reason. And I would probably do something with the Swarm as well from Generation 2. Not that I'm a massive fan of Generation 2, but I would love to see them touch upon that yet again. And even if IDW would do something similar to... I love how they're slowly incorporating Beast Wars into their own continuity and cementing that as part of it. That's really cool as well. And if I was in a movie with multiple YouTubers as a Transformer, I want to be a smaller sort of scout class Transformer. I don't know what I would look like, but I prefer that kind of body, example Hot Rod or Sideswipe or something along those lines. That's what I would want. Favorite TV show, Transformers. Well, Transformers Prime. Now I've spoiled my list for you. There you go. Save you watching it. What is your overall favorite Transformer out of any continuity? I feel like this is a very, very commonly asked question. Do you want to remake any of your old videos, or do you want to leave well enough alone? Thank you so much for asking this. You just saved me an update video. Due to copyright, back in early 2015, I was unaware of YouTube's copyright system. So now that I know, I would love to remake some of my older videos to avoid the copyright strikes, so that everyone can watch them, because I know they are blocked in a few countries, and that is really annoying. But it's only fair. I guess I used a bunch of different clips. I am planning to not only remake, but also remove all of those older videos. So all of the ones you're seeing up on screen now, I am currently planning to remove or private and then remake. To avoid copyright and to do it better. I'll do it with more jokes, more like information, etc. And I'm honestly just gonna have a good time with it. I wanna do them better for you guys. What do you think about Ratchet? If you're talking about the Ratchet from Age of Extinction, I hate you. If you're talking about Ratchet normally, I think they're the best characters in Transformers. They've managed to do him right in pretty much every appearance, and he is such an integral character to the series. He's so amazing. I love Ratchet. Ever thought of getting your own Transformers OC and use that as your profile icon YouTube avatar? I will eventually end up doing that, most likely. I just have no idea what I would do it on, because I don't want to have like a stupid repaint or something. I'm happy with Bumblebee at the moment, but I honestly don't know. I will do that in the future for sure, just what it would be, no idea. What's your favorite Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game? I'm not a fan of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to be honest. I'm sorry to say. But that game on the Wii I did play when I was younger with some friends, and that looked pretty cool, I guess. Which Transformers gimmick, Headmaster, Target Master, Pretender you like the most? Well, I'm glad you asked. I was never fortunate enough to get any of the original Generation 1 gimmicky sort of toys. So I was stuck with Cyber Planet Keys and Power Linksing and Power Core Combiners. And honestly, while a lot of the gimmicks lately have become quite lackluster, out of the three you've just listed, I definitely think Headmasters would have been the coolest. I'm glad they're doing it again with Titan's Return, so I get to see how that plays out. I mean, the Target Masters were pretty cool as well, I guess, because I had the Generation Scoop toy, and it is pretty cool how his guns can become people, but... Who was the first Autobot to die in G1? I don't... How... Is that a trick question? Are you tricking me? Are you trying to test me, Wheeljack? Are you... Well... The first Autobot to die in the cartoon... No one died until the movie, right? So the first person was Brawn, I think. Right? How about, what different types of media do you like? I mean, I know you like Pokemon and Star Wars, but it would be nice to know. I have a very diverse interest in different media, so, like, as you said, definitely Pokemon. I am a very avid Pokemon fan. I love Pokemon and I love playing the game. Not so much as a lot of people would be, but I am. I'm not so much Star Wars. I have seen the new movie and I did really enjoy that, and I do know enough about the franchise to understand it, but I'm not really a fan of Star Wars, to be completely honest. As I said, Sonic the Hedgehog has always been probably the second best of Transformers for me. The Archie comics are a big contribution to that. I know the games have gone to hell at the moment, but the comics have been as awesome as ever. I love Lego, so Bionicle and Hero Factory, as I said before, those have always been amazing. I have a bigger Bionicle and Hero Factory collection than I do Transformers, I can tell you that right now. Probably about twice the size. What else? Ben 10. Now, while I should have grown out of that by now, Ben 10 has always been a franchise that has stuck out to me. Now, while I have stopped watching, I stopped watching when Omniverse came out, I really did love the original series. It was one of my favorite and most inspirational shows I've ever watched, and my name comes from Ben 10. If you don't know, I do recall Shadekill Gaming asked that question a while ago, and was one of the reasons I did this Q&A in the first place. I got my name from my two favorite aliens, Diamond Head and Cannonball. Now you know, and now my name looks stupid, doesn't it? How many heads do you have on your shoulder? I think only one. I would hope only. When did you meet Eddie Duan? Well, it was a beautiful summer evening in Paris, France, and I went to a cafe wearing a trench coat and a top hat, and I was ready to just sit back and enjoy the view, and then I saw this beautiful fellow sipping tea. And I thought, wow, now that is a man. And, yeah, that's where we are today. That's what happened. That's 100% legit. If you ask him, that's definitely what... Don't you wish the Combaticons were all in animated instead of just Swindle? Yeah, definitely. I know animated didn't do combiners, but I would have loved to see how Onslaught, Vortex, Brawl, and Blastoff would have been in, animated as well. Like, Swindle was awesome. Swindle was the most Generation 1-iest character of all of them. So he probably would have been... The other Combaticons would have been fantastic. What do you think is the best toy line out of the Unicron trilogy? Now, as much as the show sucked, I am aware that Energon has one of the best toy lines ever out of Transformers, as far as I know, because they did have a lot of good toys, and while they were repainted to hell, they were pretty awesome toys. Though I do think Cybertron had the coolest toys out of all of them, because they had the really big ones, and the Planet Keys were fun to... Do you collect Transformers, and if you do, what lines do you collect? Yes, I do collect Transformers, and I mainly collect the Generations line. I love them because they are, in my opinion, the most accurate to Generation 1 and all the IDW comics, especially nowadays, because they're doing the tie-in. And obviously I've been collecting a lot of Combiner Wars recently. Yeah, I do collect a lot of Generations. Not so much anything else at the moment. I have not bought a single Robots in Disguise toy. They all look awful in my opinion. I'm sorry to... Hi, my question is, or questions are, if you were a Transformer, what would your name be? What alt mode would you be, e.g. car, spaceship, and what faction would you pick, Autobot or Decepticon? Thank you for your time and keep up the good work. Oh, thank you. Okay, so I guess now I have to make up my Transformers OC. I don't know what my name would be. I would get back to you on that one. I don't want to come up with something now and then people are going to start calling me that. I would want to be a sports car. So, like I said, a sideswipe sort of body design, because that is probably what I admire the most. I would want to be an Autobot, because if I was in the Decepticons, I'd either get myself killed or the Decepticon Justice Division would find me and end me. So yeah, I would want to be a sports car Autobot, not unlike that of Sideswipe. What is your favorite Transformers continuity and why? IDW Generation 1 continuity is my favorite, because they have everything in Transformers. Essentially everything in Transformers is in there. And even though they've killed some of the greatest characters, it is done so right, and it's just such a continuous story. It's so fantastic. Who is your favorite Transformer and why? And also, who is your favorite Sonic character in Pokemon? Well, my favorite Transformer, as I said for the 300th time, is Wheeljack. My favorite Sonic character is Metal Sonic, because he's just such an amazing villain. Even though he just gets killed over and over and over and over, he is really, really cool in my opinion. And my favorite Pokemon, as I said, is Wobbuffet. Don't ask me why, I just did it. Can you do a Shattered Glass data file video, please? I would love to do one, actually. So yes, I will do one. I'm going to try and branch out more with the data files videos.
What do you expect from Transformers 5 The Last Night? I expect a gratuitous amount of explosions and a lot of characters to die. First, my question, which is your favorite Beast Wars character? And then I have a suggestion. You made a video about top 10 cartoon themes, but now it's unwatchable because it probably got copyrighted in my country. And I want to see what you hear at the Teen Titans theme again, but I can't, so can you please make a video only featuring what you hear at the Teen Titans theme, please? Okay, my favorite Beast Wars character would be Megatron, because he's just amazing. And as for the Teen Titans video, I'll play it for you right now. But I just, two things I'd like to mention about that. Going on about copyright obviously is one of the reasons why I would like to remake some of my older videos so that you guys can actually watch it without it being prohibited in your country. And second, many people got really pissed off at me in that video because they thought that I was being racist or something. I can perfectly understand the Teen Titans theme. I know all of the lyrics. I was just trying to be funny. But clearly a lot of people were taking that seriously. What is your favorite episode from any animated series? Well, my favorite animated series is Transformers Prime. My favorite episode from that show would be Deadlock, which is the last episode. What was the first Transformers toy that you remember having? I don't know how to answer this one because I don't recall having one specific one, but I did have a bunch of them at once. The earliest one I can remember having is a Optimus vs Megatron Ultimate Battle set that came with a DVD. I still have the Megatron toy to this day, but the Optimus one is lost. What do you do in your spare time? What spare time? No, in my spare time, I usually make videos. That is my spare time. If you mean in my spare time that I don't spend making videos, I read or play video games or watch anime, because I'm alone. Are you ever going to make a Transformers series? Well, I would love to if I was given the opportunity to. Hasbro, you listening? Nah, probably not. Can you make a top 5 scariest Transformers video? Yeah, sure, if you want. Just give me a bit. How well do you think the character Sideways would work in the IDW verse? I think it would be very interesting to have a sarcastic dimension hopping of Herald of Unicron. Seeing Sideways in IDW would be absolutely amazing, because not only is Sideways such a fantastic character, he would fit perfectly into the IDW universe, and to see IDW do a take on him would be absolutely amazing. So yeah, definitely, I would love to see him. What Transformer did you want most in Devastation that did not show up at all? For me, it was Blaster and Jazz and Blur. Those are good picks, but personally I would have preferred Ironhide to appear in it, because, I mean, they put Grimlock in it, but they didn't put Ironhide, and what the hell. Diamond Bolt Senpai, we can pre-register Transformers Earth Wars. I know, it's still not going to make me like the game. Also, what are your thoughts on Overwatch? I think it looks like a fantastic game, but I suck at first-person shooters and I've never played many aside from Halo. So I'm not sure if I would. I'm not sure if I'm gonna buy it or not, especially because it doesn't have a story mode. But it does look like a pretty good game with a pretty good following thus far. Are you a brony? And if you are able, your favorite? Oh, and who's your favorite Transformer? I'm not a brony, but my favorite pony is Pinkie Pie. If you're gonna answer that, and my favorite Transformer for the 700th time is Wheeljack. Q&A. What was your favorite character in TF4 and TF3? I like how you wrote was. Interesting use of word there. Yeah, my favorite character was Ironhide in TF3, and in TF4 it was Crosshairs because he looked about as bored as the audience did. What do you think of Meme Star?
Big hate speech rants. Found a loophole, now it's my goal.
Takara or Hasbro or Takasa? Well, Takasa sounds like an anime protagonist, so Takasa. Do you add flakes for fuel or frosting for fun? I have no idea what that means. Just wanted to know, do you actually have some kind of upload time, like weekly or every fortnight? Because there seems to be a lot of time between vids. By the way, love the vids and need more of them. Smiley face. Thank you very much. Well, according to my channel bio, I am supposed to be uploading a video at least once every 2 weeks, but hopefully once every week. And I know I haven't been sticking to that very recently because I've been very busy with things that aren't YouTube. However, I do dedicate a majority of my spare time, as previously mentioned, to making these videos for you guys. And I do aim for once a week, at least every 2 weeks. At the moment, once every 2 weeks. But I'd rather have a schedule than not have a schedule, if that makes sense. Because it gives me a motivation to make videos. However, that may mean if you wanted me to put more time into videos, and if they were to be, like the games video for example, that took me much longer than usual. If you want me to put more editing into them, it would take a bit longer. What's your opinion on Transformers Rule 34? Oh my god, oh my god, oh my eyes, oh why would I... Why is he... Who is your favourite Autobot and Decepticon leaders? Without sounding cliche, Optimus and Megatron. Going with the OGs here. No one else in the future has ever been better than them. Q&A, are you going to do a giveaway? I don't know what I would give away, or who I would give it away to, but maybe in the future if money provides. What Transformer would you like to see appear in Bayformers? None of them, because I don't want them to die. Yeah. Do you like Transformers Energon and Ratchet? What do you think? Like, yes, I love them. Transformers Energon, my favourite show. Ratchet from Age of Extinction. Who is your favourite G.I. Joe character? I don't actually like G.I. Joe, and that reason is because of the Transformers and G.I. Joe crossovers. So I don't like anyone from G.I. Joe, and I hate the entire franchise because of how many Transformers they've slaughtered. I'm sorry if I'm offending several G.I. Joe fans here, but just gonna say that one outright. Speaking of which, is there any chance you might touch upon the topic of the upcoming IDW Revolution screw-up comic series where they unite Transformers and G.I. Joe? Fantastic! They're doing another G.I. Joe crossover! Oh my god. Yeah, I'm gonna not read this one. This is why I'm reading More Than Meets the Eye, not Robots in Disguise, because Robots in Disguise seems to do all of the tie-in crappy toy thingies, like Dark Cybertron and Combiner Wars, where the story doesn't make any sense and characters are killed off for no reason. Okay, I have no positive feelings for this, and I'm not going to read it, because in the past, I've absolutely hated Transformers and G.I. Joe crossovers, and I absolutely hate the fact that IDW is doing this. It would be better off forgotten, and definitely not combined with Transformers comic book. How long will you continue making your videos? Do you think you will be able to continue for as long as you can, or you'll eventually run out of ideas or get bored of it? Very random question. No, this is a perfectly reasonable question. I don't know. Sorry to give such a boring answer, but I don't know if this is something I'm going to continue for a long time, or whether this is just something that I'm going to do as long as I can, I guess. I don't think I'll get bored necessarily, and I don't ever think I'll run out of ideas. The only reason I'd have to stop is if something happened that would prevent me from making videos. Yes, I have two important questions. Energon, the show, Ratchet. Thanks. I love how you put a question at the end of both of them, just to try and trick me. Do you have any weed? What is it with you guys and drugs, honestly? Oh my god. Okay, Jesus, Jack. Alright. You know, I didn't put a limit on the questions for a reason. I trusted you guys, and this is my trust being betrayed. I'm gonna get through these as quickly as possible. What anime are you watching recently? Toradora. Oh, Jesus, shouldn't have said. And do you have a sweet tooth? No. Also, who's your least favorite actor, and did you grow up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? My favorite actor is Chris Pratt, and I did not grow up with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Also, what are your favorite desserts? My favorite dessert is ice cream. And what other cartoons did you grow up with? The Sonic Underground. Also, who is your least favorite director and producer? Michael Bay. And do you read manga? Yes, I do read a lot of manga. Also, what are your favorite anime shows? Sword Art Online, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, and Gundam. And did you grow up with Avatar The Last Airbender? No, I didn't, and not SpongeBob SquarePants. I hate SpongeBob SquarePants. What comic books did you grow up with? Transformers, Marvel, and DC Comics. And what are your favorite video games? My favorite video games are ones that don't suck. Also, what 80s and 90s cartoons do you love the most? Transformers, obviously, is a big one for me. I also love Evangelion, and a lot of older... Dragon Ball Z is really good as well. I didn't watch a lot of 90s cartoons, to be honest. And what video games do you grow up with? I grew up with Ben 10, Protector of Earth. Several games on the PS2. I played a lot of games on the PS2. I can't name them for you, but because I can't think of them on the top of my head, but I grew up with a lot of them. Also, what are your favorite comic books? Well, obviously Transformers. And what 90s and animes did you enjoy watching as a kid? As I said, Evangelion and Dragon Ball.
Oh, finally, we got through them all. Oh my god. Lightning round! Also, in the second Q&A, can you answer how did you get into Transformers? I already did that. Do you think Lockdown could return? No. All of you play the new Transformers Earth Wars mobile game. If you're not, you need to get on it. It's like Clash of Clans but with Transformers. I feel like this one wasn't aimed at me. I have played Earth Wars, I'm sorry, I'm not the biggest fan of it. So far, who is your favourite Transformer from each show series? Optimus has been pretty consistent so far. He's been done pretty well, and I like the new Bumblebee, I must admit. What do you think Energon tastes like? Well, I honestly feel like the way the Transformers treat it, it must taste like either an energy drink or alcohol. I mean, I would like to say water, but probably not. If you could snort a line off a Transformer, who would it be? Okay, enough with the drug. Do you have the complete Allspark Almanac? If so, what do you think of it? I have never wanted any Transformers memorabilia as much as the Almanac, I'll tell you that right now. What if your second most hated combiner killed the Beast? Would he become your favorite? Look, even if Victorion killed the Beast, I still wouldn't like her. What is your favorite Pokemon and dinosaur? Well, Pokemon is Boba Fett. My favorite dinosaur is a Velociraptor. I got a question for you. If you were a Transformer, would you be Soundwave or Grimlock? Soundwave, because I don't talk to people. What is your favorite TV show? Transformers Prime. Would you rather be an Autobot or Decepticon? Autobot. What is the worst TF movie in your opinion? Transformers 2. OMFG, you know Evangelion. Alright, who's your favorite human character in Ava? My favorite Evangelion character is Asuka. My favorite Ava is the one that Shinji pilots. Can you do a top 5 or top 10 worst Transformers shows of all time, please? Yeah, why not? What is the worst Transformers cartoon? In my opinion, it would definitely be... Energon! Combiner is your favorite. Whoa, I have another list for that. You should just say your top 10 Transformers games. 10 is a bit much, but I can certainly tell you my top 3 is Transformers, Fall of Cybertron, Devastation, and War for Cybertron. Do you like Brawl? Yeah, he's cool. Have you played Spyro games? I have played no Spyro games in my life, barring Skylanders, and I hate those. What are your favorite TF toys? The Shockwave figure.